Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to the men's breakfast. We've had Bill O'Donnell here before. He's the Register of Deeds. He's been the Register of Deeds since 2002. I have his bio, but Bill is like our friend, so we don't need to be that formal. And everybody has one of these nice packets and some pens, so I encourage you to look them over. We have Alicia and Bob here who can help you to look up anything that you'd like online. We don't have Wi-Fi, so if you need to do anything that needs to be printed, we can do it from our computer lab. So welcome everyone, and welcome Bill.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Vicki. First of all, it's great to be here. You do have a great senior center. We go around the county. There's 28 communities in Norfolk County, and again, you have one of the nicest senior centers. And you're lucky because some communities don't even have a place to go. And I know a town like some of the towns are fighting to get senior centers. So I was asked to speak today. I'm not great at telling jokes or singing or dancing or anything like that, so I'll try the best I can. Vicki wanted me to talk about the Registry of Deeds. Vicki was saying you've had some good, really good speakers and interesting speakers, and I said, well, Vicki, why am I speaking? And she goes, well, I'm desperate, so you're the speaker today. So you got stuck with me today. And again, we'll talk about the Registry of Deeds. The Registry of Deeds is an arm of government many people don't know about, but it's really an arm of government that deals with community land records. And what are community land records? Well, the deed to your house is a community land record. The mortgage, when you borrowed money and signed a mortgage that tells the bank that, tells the world that you owe money to the bank, that's a community land record. Some of the land records, that the town of Foxboro needs recorded, whether it's a Board of Appeal decision or a planning board decision or a variance to put a garage up, or the Conservation Commission wanting to make sure that wetlands are protected, all get recorded at the Registry of Deeds. We have handouts. We're located at 649 High Street, and they've been recording documents in Dedham, not me, since 1793. I've only been there since 2002. But Norfolk County was established in 1793 when Governor John Hancock, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, he's the governor of Massachusetts, he signed the law establishing Norfolk County, and Foxboro was part of it. Vicki asked me to just give a brief overview of some of the things that are going on at the Registry of Deeds, what we've done since we've become, since I became register. Well, first of all, I grew up in Norwood. I went down the Ball School in South Norwood, St. Catherine's, the Varian Brothers High School in Westwood, and then went off to college down in Washington, D.C., and went on to law school. So I've tried to draw. I was very fortunate. My mom and dad, stressed education. I was one of five, and I've tried to, incorporate what you've learned, your educational background with some of the work experiences I've had and some of the other experiences. Like you, many of you get involved locally. Right out of law school, I ran for the planning board in Norwood and got elected. I was a town meeting member. So I've tried to draw on my local government experience when I became Register of Deeds. And at the local level, you're a volunteer, but you see what government does right, and also sometimes you see what government doesn't do so right. And I've tried to draw on that experience at the Registry of Deeds. When I went down to Washington, D.C. at college, I also spent 3 years with Congressman Moakley working in his office. So certainly Congressman Moakley was, I saw the good of public service and how he stressed constituent service and making sure government works for people. So I think I learned, I've had some good mentors politically. I worked as an assistant district attorney here in Norfolk County for then district attorney Bill Delahunt. Again, you learn what government does well. So that's what I've tried to do with the Registry of Deeds is not only draw on my educational experience, draw on some of the public service that I've done, but again, also the private sector. I may be a Democrat, but some people tell me I run the office like a Republican. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we try to run it like a business, and that's I'm an attorney by training. I had my own law practice. When myself and my partner, we have budgets to meet. You have employees to pay. You have vendors and services that you have to make some money. So I've always drawn on my private sector experience, and that's what we've tried to do with the registry. When I became Register of Deeds, I pledged a financially sound, efficient, customer service-oriented operation. And hopefully, if you come by the registry of deeds, you make your own judgments, but I think we've delivered. When I first became registered, there was literally a year's worth of mail sitting in boxes, waiting to be recorded, and there was a paralysis of paper. So the cornerstone of our modernization initiatives were a new document management system, a new computer system, which allowed us to modernize. And how did we modernize? Well, first of all, that new system changed the whole concept. When you did recordings, and I tell people, in this day and age, people may not believe it, but it was only 2002, it wasn't that long ago. When they recorded the documents, they would take it and throw it in a box. And magically, 3 or 4 months later, you'd get a book and page in the mail. Now, when we put that new system in, it went fully operational in 2003, you get a receipt. So if you paid money, you know what you paid. You get a book and page instantaneously. So it allowed us to start being more efficient. The new equipment, the new advances in technology, we brought a new computer system. Not only the new computer system, it allowed us to bring new equipment. And that was good for the employees. The employees did things more efficiently. And the employees, I have to thank them, embraced change. They didn't just say, oh, some people get scared of change. The employees were great, and I have to thank them. So anything I talk about, I see Paul Dumas out there, we were talking sports, coaching, he coached baseball a long time. I enjoyed coaching hockey and was involved in baseball and Babe Ruth. But there's no I in team, and certainly anything I talk about, I may get the credit, and sometimes you get the blame, but really the employees have been great in implementing change. So they were receptive to this new computer equipment. They were receptive to new scanning equipment getting brought in that allowed us to eliminate that year's worth of mail sitting there. In fact, if you come into the registry today, the mail is recorded. When it comes in, it is recorded today. So we don't have a year's worth of mail. We don't even have a week's worth of mail. We don't even have a day's worth of mail sitting around. We place an emphasis that when documents get to that registry, they are to be recorded. We also brought more computers into the building. So, we have a beautiful building. You're welcome to come by, but at 649 High Street in Dedham, it's a public building. So we have over 50 computers that we put in that the public can use. So you don't have to be just an attorney or a title examiner or an engineer. Anyone from the public can come in and use the computer equipment. In fact, we have a computer, check our website at www.norfolkdeeds.org, because periodically we have computer seminars where the public comes in to learn how to use our computers. And in the handouts we have here, there's a document that we hand out at that computer seminar. It says Norfolk Deeds Computer Assisted Research. And a lot of people who come to our seminar said, hey, we just took this document home on our own and started working through it. And they say it's very helpful in learning how to do the research. But certainly you can come by the registry and use the computers to do the legal research. We tried to improve the building. The building was built in 1903. It's an older building. The maintenance department does a great job in trying to shine the building up, because you can imagine it's an old building. But we've tried to make it more welcoming to visitors. Not only visitors who want to use the computers, but when you're doing a closing, sometimes it's done at the law offices, and that's great. But we've now got space where people can come to the registry and do the closings. And we've put tables in there, we've grabbed some rooms, and again, we try to make it welcoming so that, and the real estate brokers that I talk to find it advantageous, because when they do a closing, they want to do it right there so there's no problems. If there's a problems, they get it settled right away. They go upstairs, they record the documents, the checks all get passed out, the keys get traded, and everyone goes. And so we've tried to be cognizant that that's what the private sector wants. They want to be able to come in and do the closing. I have to thank the historical societies and historical commissions, especially the one here in Foxboro, because one of the projects we did, we asked all the historical societies and commissions to give us a photo, a historical picture of their town. And we had a vendor come in and blow them up and put them around the building, and especially around where the closing areas take place. And Foxboro sent a beautiful picture of your town common, and I know Foxboro, the gem of Norfolk County, I think that's their saying, and it was a nice picture representing Foxboro. But it dressed up the building, and again, I want to thank, thank, the people that did that, because it really dresses up the building. And a lot of the communities, I think, had fun putting it together. In fact, sometimes I think I started trouble. I go to some towns and they're like, we should have picked that picture, we should have picked another picture, but it really has improved the appearances of the Registry of Deeds. One of the things we're most proud about at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, and again, we're dealing with land court documents, and the biggest asset most of us have are our homes, and that's what we deal with at the Registry of Deeds. But we're most proud, for the first time ever in Norfolk County's history, we have internet land record research. We've tried to bring the registry into people's homes and businesses. So if you go onto our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, you can hit online research and do a lot of the things that title examiners can do or lawyers can do. If you just want to look up your deed, you can look up the information on your deed. If you enter Book 1, Page 1, the first document recorded back in 1793 is viewable. And in fact, it was a Foxboro document. That was the first document recorded back in 1793. So we've tried to bring, and it hasn't taken place overnight. And I have to thank, not only the staff, but there's 28 communities in Norfolk County. Each community sends a representative. It's like our town meeting. And, we were laughing with Paul Dumas, and, I know he's a good baseball coach, although I heard, Paul, some of these other people don't think so, but I know he's a good baseball coach. But he's a good representative of the town of Foxboro. He represents Foxboro at what's our town meeting. So when I talk about what we're doing here at the Registry of Deeds, it doesn't happen, in a vacuum. The town meeting members, which is the advisory board, support the Registry of Deeds. When we come up with our budget, and we're telling people we're going to try to modernize the Registry of Deeds. I mean, over time, and Paul's been a great representative to the advisory board. So a lot of the things that are happening, it's not just the staff that made it happen. It's our partners in government, and I want to thank Paul and the advisory board because, again, if they weren't supportive through the budgetary process, a lot of the things that have been done to help consumers and a lot of the things that have been done to help the residents and businesses here in Norfolk County, when it comes to the Registry of Deeds, couldn't have been done without their support. And again, the biggest thing I look to as far as what, during my tenure at the registry has been the modernization initiatives, and the biggest modernization initiative was to make the registry relevant to people's homes and businesses. You go on that, on our website, you can look up the information, and you don't have to necessarily go down to Dedham. And if you go on our website, and again, it wasn't that long ago when I first became registered, they didn't even have email at the registry. So when you think about it, everyone has email now. We've tried to develop our website so it's an information tool. So if you go on our website, we have our website information here in the folder. You can get good information. And some of you have already bought homes, but you might have sons and daughters or granddaughters and grandsons or relatives that are in the process of buying homes. We have information for first-time home buyers. We have information, again, there's been some tough times economically. We have information broken out by town for resources for foreclosure. In other words, there are a lot of community groups who will help you and not take a big retainer. In fact, they'll do it free. They'll give you advising and counseling services if you find yourself struggling with foreclosure. So that's on our website. We've tried to, we do a lot of good things. The employees, we do things for the Toys for Tots at the registry. We have food drives. We actually, if you go on our website, we have a link to every food pantry here in Norfolk County. So, that's been a great partnership. So we've tried to use the website not only for what our purpose is really at the Registry of Deeds, is to safely and accurately record the documents and let people know about it, but we've also tried to do other things with our website, other information-based and socially based directions, whether it's with the food pantry or the Toys for Tots. So we have a Suits for Success. We collect suits and distribute to a couple of the service organizations around there. So again, if you want to get information, you know, we're trying to bring the registry into people's homes and businesses. Go to our website. I would point out, we also have a customer service center. I mentioned my parents. My dad, he's still alive. He's retired. He worked for the Edison Climbing Poles, Local 369, for 38 years. And when you're telling them what you're doing, I know my staff, they probably get sick of me telling the story, but it's true. You know, you're talking about what you're doing at work, and you're saying, oh, that's great, modernizing and all that. But remember, some of us don't know anything about computers, don't want to know anything about computers, and will never know anything about computers. So we do have a customer service center, and that's really, you know, I remember talking to my dad, I said, well, we gotta, you know, address that issue. So if you don't know anything about computers, or people who are watching this, you know, come by the Registry of Deeds. We have staff, and the staff has access to the computers, and if you need information, we'll get it for you. If you need a copy of your deed, if you need to know whether a homestead has been recorded on your property, or you just want to check if your mortgages not only have been paid off, but there's been discharges, you know, certainly, you're welcome to either call the customer service center or come by the Registry of Deeds, and they'll take care of you. Before I get into some of the consumer issues, a couple of other aspects, the modernization efforts continue. When I first got there, you know, I asked, well, what do you do for backing up all this, and you know, this disaster recovery? And the person opened the door and said, well, the tapes are all in there. So I just want people to know that all the documents that get recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and there's a lot, they are all backed up. And we've taken steps to implement a disaster recovery plan and a business continuity plan. Again, trying to draw on what I mentioned earlier, you know, sort of take a private sector approach to government. So first of all the documents are microfilmed. We microfilm the documents, and they're stored at a renovated, they're stored at out in Iron Mountain. There's a big cave building out there that they're stored in. The computers that we have, there's tape drive backups, and these tape drives and the backups that take place daily and weekly get shipped down to a renovated nuclear bunker, again owned by Iron Mountain in Rhode Island. So I want you to know the documents that you record, you know, that you might have recorded years ago, they get recorded, they get put in a book. We're still one of the few registries, and again, you know, I thank the support from my colleagues in government that allow the Norfolk Registry to do it. There are 21 registry districts across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and not all of them print books. We still do it the old-fashioned way. I've been talking about modernization, but you know, I don't want to be the first Register of Deeds in Norfolk County to stop printing books. These books go back, the documentation goes back to 1793. So we still print books. And maybe sometime we're gonna have to stop, but I look at it, you know, some people still come in and do it the old-fashioned way, with looking at the books and looking at the indexes. And to give you a sense of how many books, when I first became Register of Deeds in 2002, we were at book 17,000. We're approaching book 32,000. So there were 15,000 books just in my tenure, and 32,000 books totally. And all that information has been scanned in and made viewable to you as residents. So that's something we're proud of, and we're still continuing. Who knows? 10 years from now, you know, the things we're talking about may seem antiquated, but one of the things that we're doing at the Registry of Deeds is electronic recording, and you know, that is been well received, especially by the local attorneys. You know, we try to listen to our constituent groups. But what electronic recording is, you could be in Bellingham, or there are attorneys here in Foxboro. They set up an account where they could do the closing at their law office. All our information is online, so they can check to see if there's any liens or anything. And as soon as they're comfortable that there's no liens, just as if they were checking on the liens at the Registry of Deeds, they transmit it over the computer, all these documents, and it gets recorded online. And again, it's been well received because, you know, some people, it just saves a trip to Dedham, and there are certain efficiencies the attorneys seem to like. So again, that's something that, another new kind of modernization initiative we've done at the registry. I was also asked, you know, to talk a little bit about some consumer issues that come up at the registry. First of all, in our handout there's a article regarding the deed scam. The article was in the Herald, not a great title. It says "Dirty Deeds Not Done Cheap," but what it is there's groups out there, and if you hear about these groups, tell your neighbors or don't fall prey to them. That they send a letter out to the constituents here in Norfolk County, and it's not just Norfolk County. They're doing it across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They're doing it in Illinois. They're doing it in other states, New Jersey, New York, where they will say for anywhere from $60 to $80, they will get you a certified copy of your deed. And what they do is they come directly to the Registry of Deeds where it only costs $2. So I tell people, if you need a certified copy of your deed, come to the Registry of Deeds. Don't be paying someone $60 or $80 to do something that only costs $2. And as a matter of fact, if we have Alicia and Bob here today. If you need a certified copy of your deed today, we certainly can print it and and do it. And that's the beauty of the computers that we brought here to the to the Foxboro Senior Center. It's just as if you're at home. The computers that we have here tie into our records, so we can print print the deed. And you can do that from your home as well. You can check on the information from your home. So that's been an advantage of the technology. When we come to senior centers or to retired men's groups, or we go out to the we do office hours. We go around to the communities in Norfolk County have office hours. When I first was doing it, it was like when I used to work for Joe Moakley. You'd have to take it down on a piece of paper, go back to the registry, check it out, and then call up, and sometimes it would take a lot longer. Now, because of the computerization, people just sit down here and we can get everything done more efficiently, whether it, like I said, a copy of your deed or checking on your homestead or your discharges. Another thing to be aware of, and just tell fellow people here at the senior center, because this particular kind of scam sometimes is targeted to the elderly. There's a group that solicits, especially the elderly, and says for $15 they'll get you a homestead form. And we'll talk about the homestead in a minute. But the homestead form, you can go to our website and download that free. Or, a lot of times we leave these green folders here at the senior center. We have the various homestead forms here in the package. And again, that group, they'll send you the form for $15. They won't fill it out. They won't do anything to help you execute it. They'll just give you a blank form. So for $15, don't be paying $15 really for something you can get free. So again, just spread the word. And some of these scams, you may say, oh, they're criminal. Well, the Attorney General's office is aware of it. They may not be criminal, but they certainly prey on people. I think they're certainly anti-consumer, and I certainly think they try to deceive the public. So when we come to these groups, and I know sometimes it may seem like we're repeating ourselves, because I speak about it a lot, it happens all the time. It's still happening. So even though the Boston Herald did a story on it, even though it's been on Channel 4 News, WBZ Radio came by and did a story on it, people are still falling prey to these scams. So just spread the word that at least when it comes to the Registry of Deeds, if you need something, come directly to us. There's another document in here that says, where has my bank gone? And again, I don't raise this issue to worry people or to get people alarmed, but when you signed a note with the bank recorded a mortgage at the registry telling the world you owe them money. And a lot of times we see it at the registry, and I'm sure if you've been through it, whether you've sold property or refinanced, and you get that call from the closing attorney that says, hey, there's a couple of outstanding mortgages here. And you say, wait a minute, they've been paid off. What are you talking about? Well, that's what I'm about to talk about. They may be paid off, but you need to have a discharge recorded. The discharge is a 1 or 2 page document from the lending institution that tells the world that that mortgage that was recorded has been paid off. And the only reason I raise it is we see it at closings at the registry where it causes some consternation, causes some worry. And the reason we put this document in here, where has my bank gone? At the registry, we've tried to track where your banks have gone. And in some cases, banks have completely gone out of business, and other times they've merged. But there are websites in this document, federal and state websites, that kind of give you some direction if you're trying to chase who has your mortgage and who do you get the discharge from. And again, I'm a big believer in community banking. I know you have some good community banks here in Foxboro, and there's a lot of good community banks around the county. If you go to them, you're going to get good customer service. If you go to them and say, hey, some closing attorney says this mortgage from 20 years ago it hasn't been discharged. Can you help me out? The community banks, for the most part, are great. They'll look up whether you paid it off, they'll give you the discharge, and then you take it down to the registry to record. But sometimes these banks have gotten too big, and we could have another conversation on what the big banks have done to the economy and what they've done to kind of the economic soundness of America. But sometimes in being too big, you can't get an answer. You're trying to chase it. And and again, I've done this talk, and people go, you know, I went through what you talked about, and until you go through it, people don't quite understand how difficult it can be and how aggravating it can be. But I'm only mentioning it not to worry about you, but just make sure if your mortgage has been paid off, there's a discharge that tells the world that that mortgage has been paid off. As a matter of fact, when we do a lot of these office hours at the town halls, people will come up and say, you know, I need to get a discharge. Can you just check to make sure it hasn't been recorded? And they have all their paperwork with them. And you actually go through, and they actually have the original discharge. So sometimes the banks say they sent the discharge to the registry. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. At least in my tenure, if the discharge comes in, it gets recorded. A lot of times they sent the discharge to the consumer, but didn't make it clear that that document really should be recorded. So it's just something not to worry about, but it's just something to be aware of. And again, many of you probably have your mortgages paid off, so I'm very jealous because I'm doing college tuitions, and it's going to be a long time before I pay the mortgages off. But some people have refinanced, and the same principle applies when you refinance. You know, just make sure when you refinance that old mortgage that you substituted because you wanted to get some equity out of your property, or maybe you wanted the lower interest rate, or you wanted to knock some years off the mortgage. Just make sure that old mortgage has been discharged. The other big consumer issue that we deal with at the Registry of Deeds is the Homestead Act. And I was asked just to talk a little bit about the Homestead Act. It's written in the state legislation, Chapter 188, that every resident in Massachusetts, if you have a residence as your principal residence, you can declare an estate of homestead on your principal residence. It's a relatively simple document where they just need a title reference, and like how did you get your house through the deed, or if it's on the land court side, a certificate of title, or maybe you inherited it, and you sign it in front of a notary. And it's a relatively modest filing fee of $36, which is set by the state legislature. Now, people might say, and there's no age limit. People say, is there any age limit? If you're fortunate enough at 18 years old to be owning property and it's your principal residence, you have a right to declare an estate of homestead. And what does it protect? Well, it doesn't protect, if you have a homestead, it doesn't protect you if you don't pay your mortgage. The bank can foreclose on you. If you don't pay the taxes here in Foxboro, the town of Foxboro can take your property through tax title if you don't, even if you have a homestead recorded. But I think the homestead does have benefits. I said I was an attorney by training. I've been an attorney since 1985. I know sometimes we're not held in high regard, and sometimes if you talk to 10 different attorneys, you get 10 different opinions on an issue. But I think with respect to a homestead, 9.9 out of 10 would say you should record a homestead. It's just an added layer of protection. And what does it protect you against? Well, some people get into credit card debt. So kind of what the homestead does is sort of what I say is put a picket fence around your principal residence so that there's no forced sale to satisfy a debt, like a credit card debt. Or some of you may be driving a car, and I know, you people retire, they're on fixed incomes, taxes are going up, they start cutting back on their car insurance, and maybe they only have a $50,000 policy, and suddenly you hit somebody in the crosswalk, and that person has a $400,000 or $500,000 judgment. Well, they're going to look to your assets to satisfy that judgment. They're going to look to your insurance company, and if you don't have enough insurance coverage, they're going to look to other assets to satisfy that judgment. What's the biggest asset most of us have is our home. So to me, and again, we don't have any bias or anything, whether you put homesteads on or not. It's not like we have any incentive, but I think it's the right thing to do as a consumer. It's just an added layer of protection. And the homestead has been in the news with the legislature. There's been some changes in 2011. There's been changes since I became registered. When I was first became registered in 2002, the protection was $300,000. In 2004, it went up to $500,000. So the legislature is always looking at the homestead. Maybe they're going to change, maybe they'll increase it at some point, increase the protections to the consumer. One thing they did in 2011, and you should thank your state senators and state representatives, for the first time in Massachusetts history, they have an automatic homestead. So in order to take advantage of the homestead under the past law, you had to get the deed description and execute the homestead. And again, it's a relatively simple process. But you had to make a declaration. Now the legislature has passed a new law where there's an automatic homestead. It's only $125,000 worth of protection, and it gets a portion amongst who owns the property. But at least if you've done nothing, because of that change in 2011, there's at least a little protection, $125,000 on the property. Other things other changes that have been made in the new legislation, under the old legislation, when you refinanced, a lot of times the mortgage terminated your homestead and you didn't even know it. I know that in a personal example. Like I mentioned, I have 3 children, and one's out of college, one's in college. You're dealing with refinancing. There was a clause that terminated my homestead, so I just threw another homestead on after the refinance. And a lot of times people weren't aware. I mean, I was aware of it, but sometimes the banks have lawyers. They don't want to check off information, and you got to thank your legislators, because they put new legislation in that went effective 2011 that says, look, if the banks put that language in there, it doesn't terminate your homestead. So that was some good news. The homestead also protects proceeds. For instance, just say your house burnt down and you got an insurance check, and you wanted to rebuild your house. If you declare a homestead, the homestead protects for a limited period of time those proceeds. If you sold your house, again, the homestead, if it's declared, protects the proceeds of the sale, so someone doesn't come swooping in to take that money to satisfy a judgment. So there's some good protections on the homestead. And another change that was made in 2011 changed the law. There was a law out of the land court that said that if you put the property in trust, you couldn't declare a homestead, because the homesteads can only be declared by individuals, and the trust isn't an individual. And if you've taken time to do estate planning, go back to the attorney or the counselor or the person you did the estate planning with, because under the new law, it says that if you have the property in trust, you can now put a homestead on that property. So the trustees can make declarations on behalf of the beneficiaries. So again, the homestead isn't something maybe a lot of people know about. But take the information that we've put in our handouts, and there are in this, we have some information in the handout on the Homestead Act. You can certainly take it back to your relatives, your sons and daughters, your grandchildren, because chances are one of them is the self-employed plumber or the self-employed carpenter that probably needs the protection of a homestead, and please take the information back to them. I know I've been talking at length. I don't know if anyone has any questions or...
Well,
yes, try to answer
if you
it.
have a homestead, is that registered as a deed? Is it registered with your deed?
Yes, and for a homestead to be effective, it has to be not only declared, you have to record it at the Registry of Deeds. So again, afterwards, Bob and Alicia are here from my office. We can just run your name in to see if the homestead has been recorded. That question triggers another thought in my head, because some people ask, well, when the dollar value went up, did I have to re-record a homestead? The legislature has written it that as long as your homestead is valid, you get the benefit of any increase. So you don't have to keep, going down and recording it if they increase the value, of protection, which went from $300,000 and it's now $500,000. But yes, in order to be effective, it has to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And as a matter of fact, the legislature wrote another change, because I know sometimes people have mobile homes, and things like that. There was always a question where to record them, and in the legislation, they say if you have a mobile home and you want to protect that interest, record it at the registry of deeds as well. So that was another change that the legislature made. Yes?
Is it only on the primary residence?
Yeah, in Massachusetts, and again, I only speak to Massachusetts law, it's your principal residence. So I know some people have maybe a vacation home down the Cape, they can only declare it on the principal residence. Although sometimes you see, maybe the wife is, declares the principal residence down the Cape, and makes, has to prove it. Maybe that's why their marriage lasts longer too, one's down the Cape and one's up. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not saying that, we get in trouble at home. But yes, it has to be a principal residence. But you do see that sometimes, it's like anything, a creditor's gonna check to make sure it's valid. So when you declare an estate or homestead, as I said, you better make sure you've done the things like the registering the car, registering the boat. You gotta prove that that's, where your principal residence is. So it's not just, you gotta declare it, but just make sure you're backing it up with evidence. Yes?
Bill, what about conservation land in the respective towns? Is that recorded at the registry as conservation land?
Unless some of the towns are now, recording things to show where the conservation land is, but most of the time, we're just dealing with the restrictions that are placed on conservation land. So we have plenty of plans, and I know sometimes in the subdivisions, when they get approved, they show where the wetlands are, and so I guess indirectly, you could look at an approved subdivision plan and try to pick up where the wetlands are on the property. But most of the times we see it in the form of, the decisions that get made by the Conservation Commission or order of conditions. That's what's recorded there. But if it's on a plan, like I said, for instance, a subdivision plan, you can kind of indirectly see where the wetlands are. Yes.
What's the in 2013, Bill? What has been the caseload in terms of number of transactions compared to 2012 or 2011?
2013, we saw 175,000 documents recorded. And I know there's a perception, everyone's like, oh, things are turning around economically. What troubled me is that there was actually more documents recorded in 2012. We had 200,000. So I don't think the economy is as robust and vibrant as people are saying. I know one thing, there's been less notices to foreclose and less proceedings going to foreclosure. So that has been one good thing to drop off. But I don't think the economy is as strong. I think a lot of it comes down to, you still have to have a comfort level in your job, and that your hours aren't being reduced, or you're going to be furloughed. So it's the last few years, it's been up and down. And to give you a sense, maybe that would have been the time to do all the changes. Back in 2003, when I was putting all these changes together, you should never put changes together at the busiest possible time. But in 2003, we had 330,000 documents, and in 2004, 325,000 documents recorded. They were the all-time records in Norfolk County's history back to 1793. So it was tremendously busy then. I know the real estate brokers wanted to get really busy back then because it was the perfect storm. Everyone was refinancing, and everybody was selling property and buying and selling. But it's a different economy now. And it's not as bad as it was in 08. I thought it looked like in 2012 it was going in the right direction, and then in 2013, again, it dipped down. But we're still one of the busiest registries. Volume-wise, as I mentioned, there's 21 registries. Usually Norfolk County is the second or third busiest registry, and we'll never be first because Middlesex South is one of the biggest registries in the country. They have like 50-something towns in Cambridge, so we'll never catch them. But Norfolk County is a pretty busy registry, and again, I thank the staff because they've responded when it's busy, and when it's not busy, it takes work to get all this stuff online. It takes work. For instance, if you want to look up whether your mortgage has been discharged, we could just hit a button. We'll look at your mortgage, and then we hit an abstract button, and it will say yes or no. Yes means it's been paid off, and it'll have a little link, and we hit the link, and we can get the discharge. Well, that stuff just doesn't happen, So we always try to, we got great managers that try to make sure that if it's not as busy as it was, we try to keep people busy so that we can put more stuff on the computer and make it more relevant. So hopefully it will get busier. I know the real estate brokers and the attorneys are hoping for a busy activity in the spring. The troubling part is the interest rates are still relatively low, and you could get some great deals, but they were so low the last couple of years, most people have already refinanced, and that's kind of dried up some of the activity, Paul. Yes, Bill?
The homestead, husband and wife should fill out one separately, or just one?
Under the old law, one person could declare the homestead for the benefit of the spouse. For instance, when we bought our house in 1995, I could declare the homestead and it benefited my spouse, or she could declare the homestead and it would benefit her. Now, under the new law, that was one of the changes. Whoever owns the property, both people got to sign. So that was one of the changes. So if there is a husband and wife that own the property, they both have to sign the homestead in order for it to be effective.
That would eliminate the possibility of one spouse going to the Cape as a primary and the other spouse staying up here, say.
Well, no, because there's a clause that says you can reference that it may not be a principal residence. So on the forms, you can actually, you still have the possibility, if your principal residence is down the Cape, you can declare that. You just have to make the world aware of, there's another spouse here, and even though they sign it, they're making representations that, yeah, I'm not living there. This isn't my primary residence. So I think the legislature, they just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of what's going on their property. And I think that's why they required, both signatures. And I think it's a good thing, and I know because when we did office hours and we come to the senior centers, and unfortunately maybe a spouse died, we had a lot of, the person that was left behind and said, well, the homestead's still good. Well, that's in my husband's name, but the law says it's still good. I want something in my name. And they just redo the homestead, even though it's still valid. Sometimes people just want to see it in their name. So I think it's a good thing to have everybody, sign off on it.
Did you take over the top floor down there?
At the Registry of Deeds, there's a couple of floors. No, I took the basement. The probate court left. They're in now in Canton. So I always say we're the Registry of Good Deeds. My friend Pat McDermott that has it. If you're going to probate court, bad things. You're either dying or you're getting divorced. At least at the registry, you're buying houses, you're paying off mortgages, and you're doing good things. We didn't take over that top floor. What they've done is the jury pool now meets there. So if there's a big murder trial or even a simple trial at district court, whether it's a drunk driving case, all the jurors start on the second floor and then they go to the various courts, whether it's Superior Court across the street or down in District Court to the building next to us. The law library has also moved back into that building. So the Norfolk County Law Library that's run through the trial courts in Massachusetts. So they have a nice little library, a lot of good resources, not just for attorneys, but again, it's another arm of government people might not be aware of, but if you need to do a little research, the staff up there is very good at helping other people out and getting some answers for them if you have some legal issues. And also the Norfolk Superior Court Probation Department has moved back in upstairs. So they're upstairs. What I've done is, I know it's a basement, but the maintenance guys have been great, and I know sometimes you can't shine a sneaker, but they've really done a nice job in the basement. And I mentioned earlier, we got those the photos from the Historical Society and commissions to dress up the basement. So we grabbed the space downstairs because I needed storage space. I don't want to be the first register to not print books. And I recognize that printing books are costly and there's going to be a space issue, but in grabbing the rooms, we put high-density shelving, so it's allowed us to keep, and I have to thank the advisory board and the county commissioners for allowing me to do this. So it allows us to still print the books. And what I've also done is, in those rooms, we put tables for the closings. So I think we've made the best use of the space downstairs that we can, so that people can come in, as I mentioned earlier, do their closings and then move on. But yeah, it's a great building. It's built in 1903. There's certainly challenges, but we've tried to dress it up. I know, for instance, another project we had done was in our record hall, all the towns have put flags up. We asked if they had a flag. Some of the towns didn't have a flag, but created one for us. In my town in Norwood, I started a war because the veterans agent, Ted Mulvihill, noticed that the Aaron Giles, who was leaving to fight the British, was in a red coat, and it caused a big stir on the color of the coat. So Norwood has one up, and they with a red coat on it, and they changed the colors to be more historically appropriate. So it was kind of interesting. And Needham created a flag, and one of the flags they gave to us, another flag went up there was a woman astronaut by the name of Williams from Needham, and she took the flag up into space. So it's been a kind of a good project, and again, Foxboro's been great. So if you come into our record hall, we have all the registry flags. So it's a nice old building, and we've tried to dress it up. But thanks for
I
asking
have
the
a
question.
question for you.
Yes.
The law library. Now, there was a law library up on Route 1. I'm not sure it's Norwood or Westwood.
You got a good
Maybe
memory.
McDonald's there. That's
Exactly.
on?
What they did, and it's like anything, I'm sure, I can't speak for the trial court, I'm sure there were budget cutbacks and things, but originally it was in Superior Court in a real small room, then it went to that nice space in Norwood,
Yeah.
and maybe because of budget cuts, I'm not in that, I run the registry, I don't run the trial court,
Yeah.
but yes, that same library now is up on the second floor of 649 High Street.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and the staff, if you've been by there, the staff's very helpful and serving.
No, I haven't been by the one when I moved to Devon.
No, but it's
Is it
that
the
same,
one-
yeah, the one in Norwood,
Yeah.
you know where it is, yep, it's
They
now,
had wonderful personnel there.
they still have the wonderful personnel. They're very good, the Norfolk Law Library, run by the trial court's very good.
And how was the parking down there?
Actually,
Rough.
well, they put meters out in the front, so that's another story, but you know how that goes. But the back, there is a big parking lot there.
Yeah.
There is a
Lot
big
of
parking lot, it just depends, usually there's space there, but I gotta say, if there's a high-profile trial, sometimes, they don't have as many high-profile trials, but parking can get difficult, but it is a big lot, so most people can't park there. So.
You had to be lucky when I was going down.
Yeah, right.
It was like hitting the lottery. I remember when I started in the district attorney's office back in the 80s, and a young attorney, if you found a spot down there, you were doing well.
Yeah.
But I also think they're more cognizant. They don't bring the huge amount. They track what the jurors they're going to need. But you're right. It still can get crowded, especially when there's a big high-profile trial. They have to bring all kinds of jurors in because there's exclusions, and in order to sit, 12 people on a jury and 2 alternates, sometimes they got to go through hundreds of people. So it can get busy on those days, no doubt.
Are more people researching on the internet than going down there now, Lou?
Yes, we've seen that. I saw it from 2003. There was so many people there. In fact, when you come to the registry building, when you come into our record hall, you may think all those people work for the registry. They don't. They are attorneys. They are title examiners. They are engineers. We provide tables for them. It's like a library. They're just coming in to do research. But yes, we've seen there are still people that come in every day. That's almost like their job. They come in, they do it, but the volume is down. I think more people are doing it from the office. Certainly the attorneys, I know, they find it very convenient, and they tell me they take the virtual trip to Devon. They just do it on the internet. It's just a lot easier. But yes, there's a lot less people in the building. Still a good amount. Hey, people are welcome to come down. I like to think I'm a people person. We like seeing the people there. But again, you got to change with the times too, and the internet, and that's where it was going. So again, we that's been our business plan, is to make sure all this information is accessible online. So I think it's efficient. Yes.
Phil, I know that you're an attorney. Do you have other attorneys on staff, and do they actually do a lot of legal work?
Well, you know, it's good to, you know, in fact, out of the 21 registries, not all registers are attorneys. You know, you would think, I do think it's a benefit because, you know, my practice, I was general practice litigation. I did a lot of trial work. Like I said, I worked in the DA's office, but I also did conveyancing and closing. So, you know, I think you draw on those experiences. So I don't think it's a disadvantage. In fact, I think it's an advantage to be an attorney, especially as Register of Deeds. When we help people at the registry, we can give guidance, but technically we're not supposed to give legal advice. But Rich Kennedy, who's the first assistant Register of Deeds, is an attorney. Marguerite Lee, who's the second assistant Register of Deeds, is an attorney. So I think it's good to have attorneys on staff. And we've had others people on staff in the past who have been attorneys. I just think it you know, your education, your training, especially, you know, I know people don't perceive all the time that attorneys help people, but that is something you learned in law school and learned in your thing. You're trained to try to solve issues. So I think it's advantageous to have attorneys on staff. And not all registry districts do. I think we're very fortunate right now, as we speak, to have 3. They don't give legal advice, but there's a fine line. You know, people calling up, you know, hey, I need a copy of my deed, you know, do I need a trustee certificate? So we're giving guidance. But I always say, you know, when I have plumbing problems, I hate paying a plumber, and I know when people have legal problems, they hate paying a lawyer, but people should get their own counsel if they have some real significant legal issues. You know, when you're given free advice, you get what you pay for. So, you know, pay for that advice and get some good counsel from the attorneys. But I think it's very helpful to have the attorneys on staff that we have. So it's been an advantage, and hopefully the people that deal with them see it as an advantage. I know I do. Well, again, it's always great. I mean, Vicky's always so welcoming, and Foxboro's always so welcoming. I enjoy coming to Foxboro. I occasionally play hockey down the street. Every Thursday, they're getting younger and younger though, Paul. You know, those 23-year-olds are speeding by me. But we're in a league that plays in Foxboro and Walpole, so I still get down here. It's a great town, a lot of great people, and I just, again, thank Vicky for the invitation, and thank you for your attention. I appreciate you guys have been very hospitable, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I just want to remind people too that Bob and Alicia are here and they can research anything you like here or in the computer lab. And I wanted to point out that this picture you gave us, that's one of the pictures that you
that
have
is
in
the
your
picture.
basement.
We blew it up. It's much bigger at the registry, but we had
You
an
gave us
extra.
that copy.
We did. No, thank you.
Years ago, so thank you.
Yeah, we have, but yeah, and we put that. That's representative of Foxboro, but the same thing. You know, we put when the towns were incorporated and sort of what it describes. And again, the Foxboro Historical Commission gave us that, and it's a nice picture.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, give me, I use your name and address. As a test? It's just additional. All right, Mr. Haley, Alicia, nice to meet you. Like, this is a speaking engagement, and then we offer the service when we go into town hall, which we always go into Foxboro's in the spring. We're there for 2 hours. And it's just a walk-in type of service. And first come, first served. People come in asking just what you're asking. And you can do this at home. You can get right on this. You go in the home for less than 15 years or less? Okay, so I'm going to narrow the search. Otherwise, this is going back to 1793. So let's narrow the search to the last 50 years. And so you put your last name in there, first name, and your town. You want to say all document types because the broader the search, the better the scope. We'll find everything there is to find. You start narrowing your search, you're not going to pick up as much. All right, so, let's see. Did you buy the home in 92 from John Mahoney? Okay, so this, have you changed the deed at all since you bought the home? Okay, so I'm gonna, the one difference between here and at home is you can't print. You can view, but you can't print. So I'm gonna put, and So if you ever want to look at this stuff at home, so you understand, this says view document, it's a book, we're gonna view the document. And here it is, here's how, that was my uncle's name. Yeah, he came from South Boston though, and then here it is, okay? So now what so all you can do is view this at home. If you want a copy of it, you'd either have to come down to the registry to get one, or you can request one by mail. But you're in luck, you're here today, and you get it right here. So I'm gonna add that right into the card, my print card, okay? Then I'll close that. All right, so there's the deed. Now here's the mortgage when you bought the property. I can check that mortgage out to see if it's been properly discharged. Okay. And this is how when Bill spoke about the abstract, here's the acronym for that, ABS. And what it is you know, is a summary of what the transaction is about, an abstract. So we can look at this. Come on. And we're frozen. Come on. There we go. All right. So here's the abstract. It tells you what type of a document it is. It tells you the town, and here are the people who took out the mortgage, and here's who you have the mortgage with. And when he talked about saying if it says yes or no, at the very end of this abstract, you're going to find this word satisfied. Next to it, you're going to see either yes or no. If you see a yes, that means it has been discharged, and here it is.
Now, what do you mean by discharge?
It means that it has been paid off, the mortgage. Okay? And we're checking to be sure that you look good, and for the mortgages that you know should be paid off, have their discharge has been properly recorded. Okay?
Paying him to buy the house.
You paid the mortgage off, so you have, whenever you do that, the bank, the lending institution records the mortgage with us. That's on record with us. Here, I'll show you. Here's your deed when you bought the house. That's the very first thing that has to get recorded because you gotta know who owns the property. The next thing that was recorded at a closing normally